Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Soaring Wings Show. I'm your host, Trent Wright, bringing you all things Eagles every day. Today, I'll be wearing my blacked out Saquon Barkley jersey that I received as a Christmas gift 2 seasons ago. In addition, I will accompany it with the Vic Fangio cap. I call it that because this was the style of cap that Vic wore throughout our 2024 one, so it has special significance in that way. As a matter of fact, whenever I need a defensive stop, I take this hat off the rack and wear it as kind of a good luck charm. We'll be discussing the NFC East quarterbacks today, starting with Jaxson Dart and Jayden Daniels. This will probably end up being a two-part video because I don't think it's fair to compare Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts to these other two, simply because Jaxson and Jayden have only played a collective 36 games combined as starters in the NFL, compared to Jalen and Dak's multiple years of experience. Jalen is going into his 7th year as a quarterback, his 6th year as a starter, and Dak is going into year 11. So it's just not simply fair to compare Jayden and Jaxson to them at this time. So I'll stick to Jayden and Jaxson in this video. I would have Jayden Daniels listed as the 4th best quarterback in the division as of now. Again, I'm not really going to compare him in this video to Dak or Hurts, but we'll just compare him to Jaxson. So Jayden Daniels last year was able to lead his team to a 2-5 record as a starter. He started 7 games before he left the season with injuries. He was on pace for 24 total touchdowns. He had 10 total TDs and 3 interceptions in the 7 starts that he played in. Now, I use total TDs instead of passing TDs because even though quarterbacks are usually judged on passing metrics, I believe in the modern era that's simply not doable anymore, considering how mobile the modern quarterback is and how often quarterbacks score rushing touchdowns. And in addition, all touchdowns are worth 6 points, so I think I can weigh them the same, whether it's a passing touchdown of 50 yards or a rushing touchdown of 1 yard. It really makes no difference unless you're just a big fan of aesthetics. Now, for comparison, Jaxson Dart was able to amass 24 total TDs in his rookie season in 12 starts, which put him on a 2 touchdown per game pace, which would have led to a season's worth of 34 total touchdowns, and I believe he would have secured the Offensive Rookie of the Year, just like Jayden Daniels did the previous season. Now, Jayden's regression from his rookie year into his 2nd year as a starter was very noticeable. His completion percentage dropped all the way down to 60%, compared to Jaxson Dart's 63% as a rookie in a much worse offensive system, in my opinion. And I'll go into that as well right now. I think Jaxson Dart had one of the worst supporting casts in terms of offensive weapons and offensive coordinating. With Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka, he really never had a chance. Those guys are incompetent in terms of offense. The only coach I would say last year that was worse offensively was Kevin Patullo for my Eagles, and all 3 of those gentlemen have been fired and relieved of their duties, so that tells you a lot. Whereas Jayden Daniels at least had Dan Quinn, who has proven throughout his career to be a decent head coach and a great defensive mastermind. So he had better helping from his coaching and his supporting cast last year. Another reason I would take Jaxson over Jayden is just their frame. Although Jayden is the tallest quarterback in the division, coming in at 6'4", he's only 210 pounds, so he's very slight of frame, and you can see already in his short career how that has affected him. He missed 10 games last year due to his inability to stay healthy. And with his play style, which includes a lot of scrambling and running downfield to pick up additional yards with his legs, he's putting himself at risk every time he leaves the pocket, just based on how skinny he is. Jaxson has a similar issue, not due to his frame, but due to his reckless nature of play. He usually leads head first. He was multiple times in the blue tent with concussion protocol, just some of the devious hits he took last year. The kid's tough as nails, but he needs to learn to slide, and I do think an experienced seasoned coach like John Harbaugh will be able to instill that mentality into him to slide and to live to see another play. Daboll didn't frankly care or control Jackson's reckless impulses last year because he was just trying to save his job. Now, again, I would take Dart over Jayden Daniels, although it is a small sample size. Points in Jayden's in favor of Jayden would go to his leadership ability. His players and teammates absolutely love him, but so does Jaxson. He has that charisma as well. Jayden can't be understated, though, that Jayden was able to lead his team all the way to an NFC championship game in his rookie year with a pretty bad roster. However, when we actually go back and look at that season in a deep dive, he had multiple fourth-quarter comebacks that were pretty miraculous, including that Hail Mary attempt against the Bears that should have failed if the corner was simply paying attention. He was actually looking at the Jumbotron and mocking the fans on the final play of the game. those last second drives were proved to be unsustainable, especially with the Commanders roster being as poor as it is. And that's why you saw the regression in the win-loss column that you did. Again, he was on a 7-game pace of only 2-5. Okay, so that's not exactly what you want to see from your franchise quarterback, especially after the tremendous rookie year that he did have. Now, I think Jackson's in a better situation long term now because he has John Harbaugh as his head coach, Greg Roman as a senior offensive assistant, and Matt Nagy is an offensive coordinator. Now, say what you want about Matt Nagy's offensive coordinating, but he does tend to play a more conservative style of football, which I think will be good for Jaxson Dart's development. In addition, Greg Roman being on the offensive staff is a tremendous hire, in my opinion. Jaxson Dart and the Giants were able to have the 5th best rushing offense in terms of yards per game last year, even though they had a pretty weak backfield, in my opinion, once Scatabo got injured. And that's mostly because of Jackson's ability to scramble and his QB runs. They kept the defense honest, and they were able to become the 5th best rushing offense in the league in terms of yards per game, even though their offensive line wasn't anything impressive and their running backs weren't anything impressive. So that's the Jaxson Dart variable. Whereas even with Jayden Daniels' rushing ability, the Commanders weren't able to get much going on the ground or in the air last year. So going forward, I would rather have Jaxson over Jayden for the reasons that I listed. In addition, I think the Commanders are heading towards another regress season. I'm predicting them to go 4-13 or worse next year. I just think the roster is old and falling apart, and Jayden Daniels I expect to regress again, or more likely for him to get injured again and miss significant time. Whereas Jaxson, if he can just learn to slide, and it's already been proven that he can outperform Jayden Daniels on a per-game basis in terms of production. So I would side with Jaxson going forward over Jayden. So that's my quarterback rankings 3 and 4 for the NFC East. Stay tuned for 1 and 2 to see where I rank Dak and Hurts. Again, I didn't include them in this video because it would be unfair to stack their resumes and their combined 18 years of NFL experience against Jayden Daniels and Jaxson Dart's 3 combined years of NFL experience. And in that 3 years, neither of them started a full season. So that's it for today's video. I will upload part 2 later on. This has been an interesting exercise in comparing these quarterbacks. I really didn't know where I was going to rank Jayden and Jaxson until I thought it out and really compared the situations they were in, because just like any other player, situation is very key, not only for player development, but for maximizing what you can get out of a player. And for those reasons, I'm going to take Jaxson going forward over Jayden. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode. Again, I appreciate all the support I've seen in the comments, especially with my shorts that have been really popping off recently. Like, subscribe, leave a comment if you agree or if you disagree. I'm always open to discussion. And until the next time, stay soaring.